Hello everyone, and welcome to part 2 of my Iceberg video. Today we will be covering layer 3 of the Iceberg. Make sure to check out part 1 if this is the first Iceberg video you stumbled upon. With that said, let us begin. Now that the basics are known, it is time you begin delving deeper into the true secrets of magic. Immortality is a very large and complicated subject. For one, immortality with a neuron is not what you'd think. Instead of everlasting life, which is impossible for even gods to achieve, immortality is simply breaking the mortal boundaries of life. The mortal boundaries of life is one of the ways to describe the life cycle, which includes birth and death. Thus, immortality itself could be achieved in various ways, and what immortality even looks like can change a lot as well. However, the most common way of immortality is to use magic in order to rejuvenate cells within the body that keep it going. This magic prevents the body from deteriorating and weakening, thus allowing for healthier people to survive even longer than what they would otherwise. Even with all of this, immortal people can still be killed or die of diseases if their systems are unable to handle the damage. But if done correctly, people who are immortal are often able to combat their natural ways of death, and in some cases, live into their thousands, though this isn't too common. The origins of immortality can date back before the First Era, with many gods and pantheons. But the first notably immortal people were the Kaldivites, who could not age at all. Now, the Kaldivites are their own subject, but they are immortal because they don't age at all. But I might actually talk about them later on in the Iceberg. If I don't, there'll be a link in the description to my video about them. Check that out, if you please. The 13th clock is a hotly debated subject throughout much of Nerun. To sum it up, the 13th clock, oftentimes known as the 13th hour, was a theoretical method in order to bypass time, and perhaps even to travel through it. Because, real quick lesson on Nerun, time will consistently move forwards in most realms, including in Nerun. And even the most powerful beings are unable to manipulate time, which itself could be the case for a variety of reasons. Nonetheless, it was speculated for a long time that there could be a way to manipulate time, but it wasn't discovered until the 7th era. Here, a wizard in Marthia, which is located on the part of Ahri, on the map that you'll be seeing, named Muthokis, something like that, finally had a theory after talking with Madoka, who we'll soon talk about. Muthokis believed that there was a way to create an alternate realm, one which would allow for him to manipulate time within it, since it would technically not be in Nerun. Yet it would fundamentally be connected with Nerun, allowing for what was effectively just time manipulation. After some help from Madoka, Muthokis was able to open a rift via a very complicated religious that involved blood sacrifices to Madoka, alongside a bunch of other magic stuff, which I'm not talking about. Once opened, he was finally able to create and access this realm. Within this realm, Muthokis was able to miraculously slow down time within the 13th clock. Yet he was also able to interact with Nerun. However, Muthokis would eventually die when he cast a spell which caused the veins to not just any vein, but all of the veins in his body to bottleneck and choke. He would die very quickly. His knowledge would not be worked on until the 8th era. Madarka is the lord of all things knowledge and a god who is prevalent in many religions. What makes him unique from any other god of knowledge is that he is known to frequently communicate with various people, mostly wizards and intellectuals, who want to probe deeper into the arcane or historical secrets of Nerun. He has his own realm within a number of different books, including The Twilight of Stars Destruction, Casters of the Mind, and a bunch, like a dozen or so, of other major books, alongside many more smaller books. His many realms contain texts and magical knowledge collected through Nerun's magical and literary history, even including a few artifacts and texts dating back far into the prehistoric age. However, those who venture into his realm must be careful, for most who stare upon the walls of text tend to have their heads literally explode at the amount of knowledge seeping into their brain due to a massive information overload. Those who are able to wander into his realm without dying or going insane then get the pleasure to speak with Madarka himself, who will oftentimes share knowledge. For a price, of course. Spell mixing is the ability to mix spells in order to create a more powerful spell or to create a unique spell. This can be as simple as mixing a fire and a wind spell, which could form a fire tornado spell, but the spell mixing could adventure deep. The origins of spell mixing are quite shrouded in mystery, but it's believed that spell mixing was discovered at some time in the Third Era within Ahri. Spell mixing, however, has its high risks, which usually end up in a complete disaster. This is because mixing magical spells and techniques, especially if done incorrectly, can cause a chain reaction within the magic, eventually causing a devastating disaster, usually a large explosion or some other effect, to, do a lot of damage. If done well, though, spell mixing can be used to create and use much more effective spells. Soul magic is perhaps the first lesser-known magic school mentioned to be considered largely dark in nature. Conjuration can involve Shevku, and necromancy raises the dead with fake souls, but those schools don't really tap into the manipulation of the consciousness and soul. Even illusion magic, which most certainly has its dark sides, is oftentimes used only for its temporary effects. However, soul magic is different, very different. Soul magic involves the direct manipulation of the soul itself, and this can be used in a variety of ways. For example, those who are experienced in soul magic can revive people, which itself will be covered later on. However, soul magic is often used for more nefarious purposes. In fact, that is usually what soul magic is known for, leading it to be looked down upon in many societies. Soul magic is a huge topic to dive into, since there are a variety of ways it can be used, some of which will be covered later on. Invisibility is plain and simple, the ability to be invisible. The reason it is this low on the list is because invisibility has some strange quirks with it. Invisibility magic has been around since the prehistoric ages. But in the third era, a wizard in Maldora named Udasu discovered permanent invisibility when he realized his sword remained invisible after trying out a new technique. Permanent invisibility requires much more magic and a complicated technique to use, but it can make things permanently invisible because it doesn't drain magic from the caster, like most spells do. However, it is very difficult to reverse permanent invisibility, and if done on people, it can be very risky, as things that are invisible for too long start to decay and die/vanish. An example is a story within 3rd Era Maldora again, where a wizard named Juna made herself invisible. She was unable to reverse it, causing her body to slowly decay and die until her vitals were effectively gone, and then she died. She was able to record her death, saying that she could feel every decay within her body, every piece of flesh falling to the ground and disappearing until she finally died. The way to reverse invisibility ranges wildly, but the most common way is to just simply keep using invisibility spells until the magic from the invisibility spell starts to drain magic. The most horrifying part is that when someone dies from invisibility magic, they either wander the world as a formless ghost, or sometimes their soul can be destroyed, never to be seen again. Datuga was a famous 7th era wizard within Maldora. He was a court wizard to several emperors of a dynasty known as the Madamiri dynasty, which was a huge dynasty that ruled much of Maldora. He was known for his extreme magical knowledge, and he regularly showed off his skills within the Madamiri court. However, Datuga was also known for his arrogance, as he regularly thought himself as the best wizard in the world, and he compared himself to various deities and gods. However, within his realm, he was largely one of the best wizards, so no one was able to challenge him. Datuga eventually began to experiment with his magic, leading to him discovering how to alter the core compartments of certain items. This goes into the literal manipulation of atoms, so I won't go into it too deeply. But to simplify, he basically learned the composition of various atoms, and then learned how to manipulate and change those atoms. After figuring out he could alter many things, he decided to show off his skills to the Madamiri Emperor himself in the next major feast. When the feast came, he began to perform magical tricks and miracles, including transforming water into alcohol and turning various meats into other meats. However, during this show-off, he went to manipulate another piece of food, but this time, instead of simply turning into something else, the entire room was set on fire, and the area soon exploded. No one survived. The story of Datuga is a famous tale around Maldora and Nerun as a whole, as a cautionary tale against arrogance, and to show just how dangerous magic can be. And that will be it for tonight. If you liked it, make sure to comment what you thought and subscribe to await part 3. Have a good day or night, and I'll see you all another time. Literally impossible for even gods to achieve. Immortality is simply breaking the moral... Damn it, dude. Why? It said... What the fuck is a moral boundary of life? Magic has been around since the prehistoric ages, and it taps deep within the mythologies of, various areas. But in the 3rd era, a wizard in The 13th clock is an hot.